So the general statistics was one I think they were fighting on. There was going to be another one where they were requiring people to take physics. That was another proposed idea, which just never needs to happen for athletic training in my mind. But there could be some changes to these again for the set of standards that comes after 2020. But for 2020, these are the prerequisite course requirements that they have to go through. So as Oscar kind of alluded to before, our 3+2 program is a 5-year program. They come out of it with both a Bachelor's of Science in Exercise Phys, or Exercise Science, and a Master's of Science in Athletic Training. So it's actually an MSAT and not just an MAT. They apply to the master's degree program during their junior year or their 3rd year on campus. And then they have to meet the admission requirements. And then years 4 and 5 are going to be their graduate courses. Year 4, the courses that they're taking in their graduate program basically count towards their undergraduate degree credits as well. So they're double dipping on those classes. So they're getting both that first year of graduate courses that they get credit for, and the last year of their undergraduate courses they get credit for, which is how we enabled them to be able to graduate after year 4. So all of everything is taken care of prior to, all the prerequisites and such are taken care of prior to that 3rd year, and then that 4th year is graduate coursework, but it counts towards their undergraduate degree too. That's how we're doing the 3-2. So, then our actual program. Another thing that KD is requiring is that we do immersive experiences, at least one immersive experience of at least 4 weeks in length into every program. So this is, as you can see, kind of coincides with what we're already currently doing for our summer intensive. Okay, same kind of idea. They want the exact same thing. You see the totality of care, you experience the week-to-week and day-to-day role of an athletic trainer, you actually get to see what this whole thing is about. So we have taken this immersive experience idea and used it as a basis for what we are doing as our clinical education structure. So this is a very, very different model than a lot of people have ever seen. There are currently 2 programs in the country that are using this model right now. What we are doing is we are doing 8 weeks of didactic coursework and 8 weeks of clinical education and keeping them completely separate. No longer do we have students who are going to classes in the morning and then clinical rotations in the afternoon. So the 8-week modules vary depending on what year they are in the program. But what this is doing and what we are seeing from the programs that are already doing this is it allows the student to be a little bit more mobile. They can do clinical rotations back at home, so they can live at home and do clinical rotations from wherever they're from. That's acceptable. Exposure to lesser seen skill sets, they're there all the time. You can have them do some of the insurance paperwork, you can have them do all of those different things. And it also allows for more patient encounters. This is really what we are seeing out of the schools that are already doing this. So, this is what our clinical education structure is really going to look like. So, fall year 1, they're going to start off with their didactic coursework. They're going to be able to do all of their taping stuff, some of their emergency procedures, all of the things that they would have as a first semester sophomore. Okay? So the first 8 weeks, they're doing all of that didactic coursework. You will not see them at all for that first 8 weeks. The second 8 weeks, they do a clinical rotation. And where they do their clinical rotation is going to vary depending on what we can fit into whoever and where everybody wants to go. But you will see them full-time for those 8 weeks. They are in there an average probably of about 35 hours a week. Okay, so very similar to what y'all are doing in terms of when you come in, they're in. When you go home, they go home. Things of that nature. Yes?
So this is fall year 1 as a first-time freshman, or fall year 1 in their 4th year?
In their 4th year. So this is in the master's program itself.
Okay. Are they going to have any exposure to any athletic training stuff before their seniors now?
Yeah. No, not really. They will have first aid, prevention and care. They will have, so in the undergraduate portion of the program, the first 3 years, they will have prevention and care, they will have their first aid certification. During that 4th year, the first 8 weeks before they ever see you, they will have exposure to athletic training stuff.
But not to the clinical setting.
But not to the clinical setting yet.
So they're going to miss the first 8 weeks of football, essentially?
for the first year.
Oh, okay.
So the second year, as you notice, everything is going to switch. So the second year, they do their clinical rotation the first 8 weeks, and then their didactic the second 8 weeks. So you will probably have, the way it'll work, if for the clinical sites, is you will probably have one student for the first 8 weeks, and then another student for the second 8 weeks.
The more experienced student at the first 8 weeks.
You have a more experienced student the first 8 weeks. Second 8 weeks, you will have probably a less experienced student.
In this format, when will they have their evaluation courses?
Evaluation courses are spring year 1, I believe. So after their first year, they will have their evaluation courses, yes.
So they have no, so we're getting them as master's level students with no athletic training experience. Is like the rigor in the courses gonna be higher?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The rigor in the courses and the expectations that we have for them is going to have to be higher. It's a master's program. There's no other way to go about it. But they, in terms of what they have been exposed to and what courses they've already had, it will be like they are a first or second semester sophomore.
They'll just be older and more mature.
Oh, that's gonna be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, well, we design the rules getting like, so they'll really only have, so like 20 weeks of actual clinical experience before they can sit to take a VOC.
Basically, yes. But it's the same amount, it's
Right,
actually
just the
equates to the
hours
same amount of
are higher.
hours and the same amount of patient contact. Actually, they're getting more patient contacts with this.
Okay,
So this summer intensive is 8 weeks long.
okay.
So they have to do more hours because it's 8 weeks long. So, but it depends on where they want to go for it. We have to hit all of those check boxes for this. So the reason we're kind of moving to this is because we're seeing the issue that a lot of schools are having where all they do is move their program up a level and expect the students to do the same amount that they're doing now. So they only have the 2 years as opposed to when most people have, 3 or 4 years. They're just getting rid of a year and doing it this way. So they have even less exposure to the clinical rotations and less exposure to what actually happens as an athletic trainer if you just do that. That's why we went to the 8-week modules. We want our students to have that full 8 weeks of absolute hands-on immersive experience. We're seeing a lot better results in terms of what they're coming out of as clinicians with that.
And then will it just be the 1 day a week off? Is that the same, like when they're in their clinical rotation?
So, yes, because we have to for Katie. That's the only requirement is the 1 day a week off.
Okay.
So they are expected to complete their clinical rotations as if it was a full-time job,
But will they still then have like minimums and maximums like we currently have?
technically.
But we can,
Yeah, the minimums and maximums for this we haven't had set yet, but the maximum is going to end up being like 1,000 hours.
Yeah.
Like I don't care how much you want them there. This is their clinical rotation. They have to do it. So the minimum is going to end up being, the 225 or whatever it is now.
right.
The same minimum, but the maximum is going to probably triple. Yes.
So will we get any students while they're in their undergrad process or no?
We will still be finishing out those students. So there's going to be less students because I have less students in the program because they keep graduating. So you will still be getting those students while they're in the undergraduate portion if they are in the undergraduate program. So prior to that, once we start the master's program and are doing nothing but the master's program, you will get nothing but master's level students. We might have, one of the admission requirements we're toying with and that we really probably should introduce that we don't have on the books yet is having them do that observation experience that a lot of them had to do so far before they apply so that they actually know what they're getting into. That is not going to be something that is regulated by the program. It's going to be, this is the form, you have this person fill out, you find an athletic trainer that is that is licensed in the state. If the state has licensure and is certified by the BOC, you do an observation experience, you decide whether or not this is something you want to do. And so it's no longer I'm setting up the rotations in terms of observation stuff for them. But once we start this master's program, you will not see an undergraduate student for athletic training for our program. No. There are 3 programs across the country that are doing it this way. If they were smart, more programs would do it this way. A lot of them are just taking their undergraduate program and moving it up to, we still do clinical experiences in the afternoon, classes in the morning. That's how you go about your business.
Sure, I think I meant they're not getting experience until year 4 or 5.
Yeah, so once they switch over to the master's level programming, they are not, you can't have them do clinical rotations outside of that program. They're technically not in the program. So you cannot regulate and mandate that they do rotations outside of your program because they're not there yet. So the clinical rotation for the program has to come in the 2 years that you have them in courses. So these are 8 weeks long here. The summer one is also 8 weeks. It is nothing but clinical rotation. That's all it is. And I know a lot of you are either now working in the clinics during the summer, or there's not a whole lot going on in terms of high school sports or college sports during the summer. So this might be a good spot for them to get their rehabilitation clinic experience, their non-sport population experience, whether it's military or performing arts, whatever it might be. That's probably what we're going to end up using this rehabilitation clinic thing for. The other option is if we have students that are coming from across the country. Let's say we have a student that's out in California that wants to go back to California for the summer to complete this rotation. As long as I'm able to talk to the preceptor, as long as I'm able to do a Skype interview or whatever it might be, and I can have regular communication with them, they're able to do that. As long as everything's regulated, they're able to do that. So it gives them a lot more options in terms of what we can do for clinical rotations too. Questions? I know it's a lot of information.
Yeah, I think my only one is, so we'll have them for 8 weeks, and I know they'll have gotten their athletic training coursework out of the way. Will they have any other classes that they're doing when we are having
No.
them?
When you're on their clinical rotation, there may be like one online class they have to do, which is something along the lines of research or senior thesis or whatever it might be. That they will have something like that, but no other didactic coursework. So they're not learning things as they are doing their clinical rotations. They have that knowledge prior to. Now this is just the implementation piece of it. They will still have the clinical assignments that they have for their practicum courses, so they'll still have to do the same type of assignments where they're creating scenarios and talking through situations and creating and critiquing emergency action plans. All of those things remain the same, but that's the only obligations they have for that.
And then during their coursework, do they have any sort of clinical practice to reinforce skills at all, or?
No, so it's all based on a skill-based scenario. So it's all scenarios while they're going through it. So it's not we learned something this morning and we're now implementing it in the afternoon. What we are largely seeing in terms of people that are saying that this is something we want in terms of the program is that hardly ever happens that way, that they have a skill that they learn in the morning and they get to implement it in the afternoon. So the idea of keeping it that way, we're getting more out of this because it's the second 8 weeks and you have a full-time 8-week exposure to it than you are when you have those courses that are split, courses in the morning, clinical in the afternoon.
And it's okay with Sunday being their only day off?
Yeah. 1 day off a week, and it doesn't have to be the same day off a week either. So, I mean, if you have one student that you want to give Sunday off and one student you want to give Tuesday off, that's.
I'm just thinking high school, we're not in on Sundays, so that would be their day off.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I guess I'm asking because I'm just imagining students binging information to do well because their coursework is now going to be done within that 8-week period. So the
Right.
class is going to be longer, it's going to be way more information. That by the time we get them in the clinic, it's going to be a lot of like, oh, I think we talked about that. Maybe.
Well, but how much are you getting that now? Because I face that every single day. We talked about this last week.
We get some of it, but like by the time we get our seniors and they've been exposed for 4 years, we have a lot. They do have a lot of autonomy, and there is a lot of reinforcement that's already happened where they're able to do those things.
Right. Well, and we're actually seeing the same thing with this second semester sophomore or second semester second years here, or the first semester second years. Those skills have been reinforced throughout their first 2 clinical rotations. So it's not like they're losing those skills because they're gone on to other things for 3 years, basically 2 months. So they still have those skills. They're still able to build on those skills. And we're not seeing a ton of, I completely forgot how to do all of these things with this model. We're really not. But what it does, it is allowing them to focus and to maintain focus on their clinical all at the same time versus having to split your focus between the 2. And so we're actually seeing a lot more retention in terms of skill practice and in terms of proficiency with this 8-week model, specifically because they're focused on that one thing at the one time. So it's part of what this is at least what the research is showing. And anecdotally, I mean, I came from a program that had this model, and it was fantastic. The students were actually more engaged in classes because they knew this is where their focus needed to be. They weren't worried about running out of class in order to get to their clinical rotations in time. They weren't worried about missing the first half of practice because they had to be in class. All of these different things, there was no more of that, and it was great. So I'm the one who actually really pushed for this model because I've seen how effective it is. I mean, it is what it is. This is what my dissertation was on, so I know that this is kind of where we're at. So the immersive experiences, we're seeing a lot more skill comprehension and proficiency based on having them there full time. Yeah.
What is that last semester of didactic coursework that they have, like, so I just find it kind of odd that they're gonna have a clinical rotation for their last clinical rotation,
Yeah.
and then they're gonna go still
So
learn
this is
stuff.
the graduate thesis they have to do,
Mhm.
the BOC prep,
Okay,
because it'll be about a month and a half before the BOC
Okay.
exam. So it's those two things, and then a little bit more of the advanced administration piece of it, a little bit more of the professional development piece of it.
okay.
That's what more of the didactic coursework is here. The full course load in terms of what they take each semester is on our website.
Okay.
So if you want to go to our website, it shows the list of when they take which courses. And some of that might adjust and change a little bit. We have 3 years to kind of play around with it if we feel like there are too many credits one semester or whatever it might be. But for right now, for what we have approved, it's on the website. So if you want to go to the website and take a look, that's what we're doing. Anything
I have a
else?
question.
Yeah.
For like the fall year one, like my hours are split for my 40 at a clinic in high school. Now will they come with me to the clinic and then follow me to the school, or is it just the school?
You can. I have absolutely, however you want to arrange that, they are there full-time with you. So if you want them to get both clinic exposure, and the clinic's okay with that, and you want them to get high school exposure, that's completely fine. Did you guys get this already? It's what I mean, they have to choose on rotation, so yeah. So, but yeah, so if you have a split position like that, I have no problem with you bringing them to both.
So in the spring, we won't have any, in the spring, we won't have any students in. Am I reading that right?
Well, this is just a sample plan. So this isn't guaranteed that this is where they're gonna be.
I see.
So some students might be this, they might do their alternate population here. Some students might do their alternate population like here. It's really kind of all up in the air in terms of, yeah. So this is just a sample for one student. So yes, you probably will have students in the spring. Yeah.
How do you do that with like an athlete that first year, say a football player?
Right. So what we're doing for the athlete, and one of the reasons that we actually chose to go to this is so that we can actually have our athletes participate in that 4th year. Because I know it's a big recruiting tool for Aurora, something we've always allowed, so we have to continue to allow it. So with the coursework being that intensive 8 weeks of coursework, they are usually out of classes by the time they have to go to their sport. And we can kind of work around that and adjust as needed. All of our coaches here are very good about doing that. So for that second 8 weeks where they're at the clinical rotation, we can start them off at a situation where, for example, we have hockey that goes like in the middle of the day. So if we put that student on hockey, they can get all of that done in the morning, and then they can still go to their sport practice in the afternoon, or vice versa. So we have the versatility to be able to look at some of those things and eliminate some of the problems we're seeing now in terms of when they're able to get to their clinical rotations. So the minimum hours that we're requiring for these students has basically stayed the same. So it's still going to be 225 still going to be 225 for the
3-hour practicum.
For the 3-hour practicums. So all of our practicums are 3 hours, right? Yeah. So it's 225 is going to be our minimum. So that's really all they need to achieve for that minimum over that 8 weeks. And so we'd like them to get more than that, but we understand that there's things that are going to influence that, and sport participation is one of them.
And that's 225 in 8 weeks.
Yeah, 8 weeks.
In 8 weeks versus now they're doing it in 15 weeks.
But they have no other obligations. They have their clinical and that's it. So. Anything else?
Oh, yeah, super random, probably totally early for this question, but because we're thinking about it. So, for example, I work hockey, and in a few years when they transition, so if they're with us the whole time, I mean, obviously, it's always up to the coach if they can travel, but I mean, that's gonna like significantly decrease their hours for that week, and that could be several weeks in that 8-week time frame if they're not able to travel, so then what are they doing then?
They just follow you around.
Traveling?
Sure.
Well, yeah, but if you, like, so if they're there Monday through Wednesday, and then you travel on the weekends, they could be there 8 hours a day with you doing everything else.
True, I just feel like then.
So you're talking about if that person's also an athlete, is that what you're talking about? Or just
No, I'm
in
just
general?
saying in general, like
If
so like if you have 8 weeks of clinical rotation, you want them to get a minimum of 225, was it like 28 hours a week?
Yeah.
But if we're gone, like say a Wednesday night through like the rest of the weekend, they're only there for 3 days,
are they able to travel with you?
no.
Not at all? That's something we might want to consider then.
Typically no, I mean, that's
we should
usually up
talk
to the
to
coach,
coaches.
because then they're gonna have an extra hotel room, and that costs us to go through athletics, and so that's
Yeah.
typically, it's
Well,
just
and
not
then that's something we can also work out too. I mean, the whole idea behind this is if let's say they're working hockey,
Yeah.
they should be traveling with you.
Yeah.
Or, you know, if you have, you know, 3 or 4 kids that are getting left behind and they need to do treatments, if you have another athletic trainer that would like to supervise them while they come in, you know, 3 or 4 days a week to do those treatments on those athletes, that's another alternate idea that you can have them do too. So it doesn't necessarily have to be wherever you're at your clinical rotation. Like, yes, they are working hockey, but if you need to find alternate people for them to work with because you're going to be gone for 3 or 4 days, I have no problem with that.
But,
Yeah.
but then the whole idea though too is that Monday they wouldn't just be there for 3 hours for the practice. It's like they would come for the prep, they would come to the practice.
Yeah, they would
come
be there
back,
as
and
much
they
as
would
you
do-
would. Yeah.
Close to 28
They would do
already.
notes,
Yeah.
they would do whatever, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
So what is gonna be your expectation of these 4th and 5th year students as far as work and outside of school commitments go? Like if they're supposed to be immersive for these 8 weeks, like are there no other excuses? Like we can expect that of them?
Yes.
Like you are here.
It's the same as the clinical rotations are now. So unless it's an athlete, which I can't anticipate us getting too many athletes at that 4th year anymore, especially with the increased vigor that we're doing. But if we have an athlete, that would be something that would be an excuse. If they have family obligations or emergencies, things of that nature, that's something they can work out with you too. But the expectation is that, the expectation is this is your full-time experience. This is your full-time job. Clinical needs to take priority over everything.
Okay.
So it's not like I have to go work this afternoon. I don't care if you have to work this afternoon.
Right.
This is your clinical rotation. This is what you're doing.
Okay.
And that's still an unexcused absence.
Yeah.
If they go to work, that's an unexcused absence, that's the leverage that
Yeah.
we have.
So it's the same policy that we have now. That part is not changing.
Okay.
So clinical needs to be the priority.
Okay.
Good? I'm sure you'll hear about this again next year too, and the year after that, and year after year, for all of the changes that we're making. This is the plan we've decided to go with. There's obviously still some things that we still have to work out in terms of specifics, but we have a couple years to do that. So, but this is what we are rolling with now. I wanted to introduce this to you all, so that way you have an idea and aren't blindsided by this whole idea of, hey, we're shifting. You're gonna get students full time for 8 weeks. So I wanted to introduce this to you now. If you have specific questions or something comes up and you want to have a chat about it, whatever, email me, give me a phone call, and I'll be happy to talk about it with you too.
And then this is fall 2020 is the
Yes.
first year we'll see these students?
Fall 2020, so we'll still have the seniors for the undergraduate course, or undergraduate program going through, and then we'll start our first year of the master's courses, same time.
Concurrently.
Yeah, so the seniors will still be on that 16-week schedule. The first year masters you won't see until the second half of both of those semesters. Good? Awesome. Thank you for coming to Preceptor training.
Okay, so, first of all, make sure you sign the document, the Katie document. Who has not signed it? Just a couple of you, okay, super. And then if your modalities are here, I'll just say this at once. I've got basically the work order. If there was any work done on yours, it was probably noted. There's no fee on there. He's gonna bill you because you should have had POs in with them. And I'll just give you your equipment right now. And if you gotta use a cart to get it out, that's fine, as long as you bring the cart back. So we'll do it right out of the storage room here. Otherwise, you're all good there?
Yeah, you should also be getting an email from me later, probably later this week. I would expect probably about tomorrow to look at clinical rotations for next year. So who you got coming to your site for next year. Okay. If you have comments, questions, concerns, anything you need to change, please email me right away. I'm trying to get this all taken care of and done by Friday so that I can send it out to the students whenever I'm able to send it out to the students. Okay. That's all.
Thank you again for everything that you do. I'll be the same. We're gonna meet right in here.
Oh, yeah, it's not good.
Nope, I have it, yep.
Don't forget your equipment.
And then he just left, that's why we left. They did the send off for the girls, so we wanted to be out there more. It just took forever.
There's your second one.
Yeah, yeah, they left at 10. Yeah. Well, Jess had to go to practice, but we were